Good morning for me anyway. Good afternoon for a lot of you. Um, Today is July 28th, 2022, and we're talking about insurance on this IT topic chat. We've got 12 participants from all over, and I happen to be normally located in Edwardsville, Illinois, near St. Louis, but today I'm up in Fairbanks, Alaska, as I'm visiting a camp that we coordinate through my firm, which is an interesting thing. And it actually is an interesting thing towards insurance because I've had to take on new and different insurance for this work that I do here. And as it turns out, the more you do, the more you find out, the more insurance you probably need for reasons hopefully you never need to find out about. So let's talk a little bit about that today. The reason why we like to talk about insurance, and I will say this is a core topic. I made that up because I don't know, I just make stuff up, but core topics are things that we do every month. And these are the items that are repeated every year. So July is our insurance month. I don't know why, it just happens to be. There's nothing specific about July and insurance, but it is a topic that we talk about in our workshops that occur at the AEA conference each October or November, whenever they schedule it. And so this is one of them. So if you want to go through kind of the intro and intermediate session for free, we've got it all. And just go look at core topics. And so you should know about that. Insurance was added as a core topic to the IC topic chats, and it was added to the conference workshops because it is one of the most popular conversation topics in our independent consulting e-group, or what we might call the listserv for the topical interest group for independent consulting. So if you look at it and you go in and you search for previous topics, if you have questions about this, and I don't answer it today, there's 135 posts about it, and this is a couple of years old. This little page this is 2 years old, but it is the number one topic that people talk about beyond like contracts and MOUs, which are also very popular to ask about. But it's business insurance we usually go about 6 months, and then somebody asks, hey, what kind of insurance do I need? And then there's a lot of posts and responses and things like that. So we get that pretty often. And so you can see here's some things from 2016, and it goes on and on. Actually, I think this is all since 2016. So that's 135 posts since 2016. So over the last 6 years. So yeah, there's the little arrow to show you how many posts we have. Types of insurance I'm going to talk about today are general liability, professional liability, often called errors and omissions, property, medical and health, and workers' comp. And I'm going to particularly focus on these three areas. General liability, that's the type of insurance that you receive when you just have any kind of business, and it covers just random things about owning a business, not specific to your business as an evaluator, as a consultant, as a data researcher, or anything like that. All businesses should have this. This is the sort of thing that if you're going about your business and some kind of random thing happens, this is the example people always give. If you're giving a presentation at a conference and somebody gets up and they trip over your power cord and they break their arm, who are they going to sue? They're going to sue anybody they can, likely, because that shouldn't have happened. They probably hypothetically would start by suing the conference hotel. They could be suing AEA or wherever you're presenting, and they could potentially sue you as the presenter, because in all these situations you're negligent. You are the person who could have and should have known better and should have prevented that accident from happening. And so if you get sued because somebody breaks their arm while you're presenting at a conference, your general liability insurance hypothetically, and I say hypothetically, should, for a reason, should cover you. I say hypothetically also because, frankly, I've never had to call in a claim for anything with regards to my business. The advice from everyone I've ever talked to particularly insurance agents, are, yes, of course you need this. And so that's all there is to it. Everybody should have it. It should cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $150 to $300. I'm sure it's going to have a lot to do with where you're located. I would imagine New York State and California are a lot more than Wisconsin. I'm sorry, Wyoming, or like North Dakota or Alaska. I don't really know how they formulate these things, but general liability is probably the one insurance we should start with. If you have a business, if you're set up as any kind of organization, if you are set up with your own federal employer identification number, you should probably have general liability insurance. I don't know if I know the answer to when you should do it. If you're like a side hustle, if you're like some of our people today, you're an institutional researcher, you're working full-time as an institutional researcher, and somebody says, hey, can you do this thing for me? I don't know that I would worry about getting general liability insurance just yet. It's when you kind of start to identify, hey, I have a business, right? And at the point that you go out and you file some paperwork with the state or with the county to let people know that you need a business license, at that point, I think you should probably get general liability insurance. The one that kind of becomes the big question mark for a lot of us, and that is the kind of the premise of all questions in the IC topic, the IC TIG e-group, is professional liability. So this is an insurance specifically for your work product as a evaluator, as a consultant. So kinds of professional liability that you might be aware of is like a medical doctor who has malpractice insurance. This is similar to that. If you put out a product and people act upon your advice and something goes wrong, they could hypothetically, everything's hypothetical. Again, never had any instances with this, and I've not heard of anybody being sued. Be happy to hear about that afterwards. But if you get sued because you made some advice and and something went wrong, somebody was injured in some way, there was some harm as a result, that's where professional liability comes into play. As I put in my notes here, they form a suit that alleges your evaluation has created harm. This is the controversial part. I don't think you need professional liability insurance until you're required to have it. Really, I mean, really. And you typically aren't required to have it. Or if you have grants over, you're getting contracts over 25,000, which is usually the threshold for a lot of government organizations. If you are working with a university, like for me, it was Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville. When I got a grant that was worth more than $20,000 for them, or $25,000 for some, they said, you need professional liability insurance. And I said, what's professional liability insurance? Just like a lot of you. And so then I went out and looked at it. If you are working in the educational business, if you do educational research like I do, you are likely going to go to AERA, the American Educational Research Association. APA, if you're in psychology, is a professional association that offers this. If you go to State Farm and ask for this, and they know nothing about who you are and what you're doing, it's going to cost you a lot of money. The first time I did this, I did it through my insurance broker, and it was about, I don't know, $1,400 a year. And I thought, well, I guess that's what you got to pay. It's the cost of doing business. And then I found out AERA, I could do it through them, and for a one-person operation, it's about, I forget if it was $250 to $350 per year. Again, it's a cost that you don't want to have to pay, but it's the sort of thing that becomes a requirement for certain kinds of contracts. I think when you're talking to your insurance agent, if you don't have this kind of through an established professional association, be very, very, very clear what you do and how there's really no risk to them, and this is just a big old cash cow for them. You're not probably going to get sued, and so the point in all of that is try and keep your premium low. And if they're asking for, I'd say, over $300 or even over $400, depending on where you are. If you're in New York, it's going to cost more. Then you might want to take a step aside and maybe even put a post out into the E group and say, what am I missing here? Because insurance shouldn't be too high. Now, in California, it's going to be high, and I think I heard that from some people as well. But if you're in Wyoming, you shouldn't be paying a lot because we're a low risk business. People do hopefully pay attention to our results, but I don't know that there's a lot of risk if people, based upon our evaluation findings. Sometimes the term E&O, errors and omissions, is separate. Typically, when you hear E&O, errors and omissions, same thing as professional liability. I think in New York State, I've heard it means something different, and you can have two different types of insurance. You also want to inquire about costs for what's called additional insured. So some of my clients say, I need you to have this insurance, and we need to be listed as an additionally insured party, which means they want their name on the accord statement. And I'm going to get to that in a little bit, but your insurance document that you receive that says what your coverages are, just like auto insurance or home insurance, there's also an additional insured. Sometimes people charge you extra, and that's kind of a pain in the butt. It makes me kind of frustrated because it doesn't cost them anything to type an additional couple of words onto an accord statement, but they will in fact sometimes charge you. And I have that situation with my AERA, American Educational Research Association, with my AERA insurance. All right, moving on. General liability, property. I do not currently have any property insurance, but this is, you may want to think about having this. Sometimes this is called a marine policy or a renter's insurance policy. If you lease space, sometimes it's required. I think technically it's required for me. I buy everything secondhand in my office. All of my desks, all of my chairs, they're really, really nice equipment, but I pay pennies on the dollar, literally, for what I get because I buy it from offices that close down, and they have this beautiful brand new furniture that may be a couple years old, and I bring it in and we have a great space, but I don't worry about insuring it because I can go out and find more of it for pennies on the dollar. It doesn't make sense for me to insure it. But you may think about having insurance for computers, and we're going to get into cyber liability insurance as well today. So that's a whole nother thing. That's not going to cover your computer equipment, but it'll cover the data that you have. You may think about having for that, and you also make sure when you're buying things, you may want to look into your credit cards, and oftentimes credit cards will have an insurance policy for things that you buy. And I think that might be, I don't know that I do that, and I'm not very careful about this, but if you buy a computer on your, an expensive $2,000 laptop with all the bells and whistles, it may be covered for a period of time in case something goes wrong with it because of the way you purchased it on your credit card. Something to think about. All right, major medical and health. So the general idea here is if we could all just have the Canadian health insurance program, it would just make things so much easier. I know there's probably a lot of people who say, well, that'd be a lot more in taxes and stuff like that. But for the purposes of owning a small business, it'd be nice not to have to worry about health insurance because it is for a lot of us, a lot of people who are thinking about independent consulting, it becomes the reason why they don't do it. And Canadians have more initiative around this because they have their health insurance taken care of. So most of us do use our spouse's insurance. When you get into the business of offering insurance to your staff, when you get to that point, couple things to know. If you offer yourself a really nice insurance program, you have to offer that legally to everybody. You can't just give yourself a Cadillac plan and give everybody else a terrible plan. Another thing to know about medical insurance, I threw my hands up in the air after looking at this for months, and I felt like I was getting swindled by certain people. We ended up with a QSARA. QSARA is Qualified Small Employer Health Reimbursement Account. I think that's what the A is, but it's an approach to effectively put money aside for people, and they can use it however they want on a reimbursement. I use the company PeopleKeep. PeopleKeep is a good little program. If anybody wants to know more about it, let me know. definitely let me know, because I think I get they give me like some sort of bonus, so I'll split it with you. If they give me $500, I give you 250. Anyhow, People Keep is what I use. It's been extremely helpful, and my staff like it because most of my staff are insured through their spouse's plans, and People Keep reviews people's expenses, makes sure approves them, and then tells me what to pay them, and I don't have to know whether it's for toenail surgery or if it's for something sensitive that I don't need to know about. They just say, give this person $323.72, and I will send them a payment for it. I put it in their payroll. The major drawback, and this is a law, a U.S. law, for reasons I don't understand, you as the owner cannot receive a QSARA, the QSARA payments if you own more than 2% of your business, which is, I think, everybody. So just be aware of that. There are ways around it, but up until now, I've worked off my spouse's insurance plan, so that works out pretty good for me. Workers' comp. If you don't have employees, you don't need workers' comp. Let me say that again. If you don't have employees, you don't need workers' compensation because there's nobody to compensate. If you get injured, you're not covered by workers' compensation. So where does this matter? Whenever you go to sign a contract, somewhere buried in the 17th page of that contract is going to be something about the insurance that you're required to have. If it says you're required to have workers' compensation and you don't have workers' compensation, you don't go get workers' compensation. You say, can I remove that from the contract? But if you do need workers' compensation, you should look into it. I would ask an insurance broker. We're going to talk about that in a second. I go through AP Intego. I don't know how they know it. They tie into my employee documentation through QuickBooks. They know how many employees I have. So when I wrote this the last time a year ago, I had 5 full-time employees, and I paid $240 a year for that. I have more than that now, and I pay more now, and they are able to retrieve that through my QuickBooks employees. So when I add a person, my insurance goes up. It's actually pretty convenient, and for the most part, I don't think that's very much considering the number of employees I have. Again, if you go out and you're asking for workers' compensation insurance, if you're in the construction business and you, like I had a neighbor who did framing of houses, his workers' compensation was thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a month. I don't know, it was something ridiculous. That's because people fall on the job and break legs on a regular basis. Make sure that they know, people know that you're a low risk. So people are not likely to hurt themselves in your business. And actually, this is an interesting point. This last spring, in the work that we do, we had a lot of materials being delivered to our office, and we're on the 2nd floor of a building that has no elevator. And I saw my staff carrying boxes up 21 stairs, and these boxes oftentimes were more than 50 pounds. And so I had to restrict that. So we paid extra to have people delivering things up and down those stairs because they wouldn't let people do it, because I didn't want any injuries and any problems with workers' compensation, because frankly, if we had to go there, I'm not entirely sure they would have covered it, because my people shouldn't be carrying anything more than 50 pounds up and down 21 stairs. So other insurances you should be thinking about. The first one I listed there is something that I only got for the first time last year, which is cyber liability insurance. It's something you should look into. Cyber liability insurance is to cover you in the case somebody steals your data, particularly anything personally identifiable. A lot of us have access to, and so that you can do, God knows what it is, but the things that you need to do to protect yourself. So you should obviously, on a whole nother world, be thinking about your data management plan and thinking about what you're doing with your data. But if somebody gets into your data and you have to go back and you have to issue emails to people and you have to go through a process, this is the insurance that'll help cover it. When I got this cyber liability insurance last year in 2021, at the beginning of the year, it was about $1,000. This year, when I went to get it, it went up 75%. So it's about $1,750 this year. So it's not a pretty insurance to have. It was something one of my clients required me to have, and effectively I'm charging them for it, so it's okay. But that's one of those insurance that you just go, man, that's a lot of money. Other insurance people get, I've never gotten travel insurance until recently, but with regards to COVID and all the interruptions we've had in travel, you may want to think about having that. Life insurance, something to think about. Auto. Now, depending on how you use your vehicle, if you're using your vehicle for work, you may need to expand your auto insurance or have a completely different auto insurance. You also, with regards to auto, you may even think about buying a company car and using it just for that. And you can actually expense all of that through. You have to be using your car, I think, over 50% for the business. You might want to check with an accountant on that one. Think about extended warranties. I don't normally recommend extended warranties, but with certain expensive items that are known to break, computers and phones, you might think about that. That is, in fact, an insurance policy. Directors and officers insurance, D&O, that's the kind of insurance you may have if you have a board, if you have a non-for-profit board that you're working with. So our company has STEM Camp, which is splitting off a nonprofit. We will have D&O insurance. That's in case something happens within that operation that your directors and officers who may not be directly affiliated, except for being a director or an officer, they're covered and they can't have any kind of a lawsuit that comes back on them personally. And then at the end of the day, there's umbrella policies, which are all-inclusive policies that cover all the things that the other pieces didn't cover. And so I only know about this from personal use. We have umbrella policy for our home and auto and life and other things and health, that if it doesn't get covered, we have another policy to cover us. So that's something to think about. What is an accord statement? Well, I didn't even know this until this morning, until I looked at it, but because whenever you get your health, get your any kind of insurance statement from anybody, you will receive, usually, not always, but almost always, you get an accord statement. And that's what it says. And I'm going to show it in just a second. I didn't know this until this morning, but that stands for Association for Cooperative Operations, Research and Development. Effectively, it's an insurance nonprofit that shares data among insurance and financial services industries. And they are kind of the industry standard statement. And it's important to kind of understand what that is and how that looks. When somebody asks to be an also or an additional insured, that's where they're gonna see their name, and that's important because they usually want they'll ask for the accord statement, and they'll want to see their name and their address listed in a certain spot, which I'm going to show right now. Let's see, is it here? That's not it. I think I closed down that window. We're going to go find it right now. Okay. How about there we go. This is an accord statement. It's a certificate of liability insurance. So you'll see this came from my broker. You can see the producer right there. That's effectively the insurance agency that coordinated things for me. The insurer is listed here, Selective Insurance Company and Chubb Ace American Insurance. So I have two insurances through this insurance broker. One is my general liability and one is my cyber liability. I have other insurances, but this is just through the one broker. You see the policy number, the dates that they're in effect here for commercial general liability. And then down here, I have the additional cyber liability, which doesn't fit in here. If you have an additional insured, it would be listed here as a certificate holder. But this is, you know, your standard document that your insurance company will issue to you. Let's see here. Getting back into
Matt, were you
yeah.
were you trying to show us your record statement or not? Or did I?
Oh, you're not seeing it, are you? Okay,
No, we're
sorry.
seeing the slides.
Dang it. Okay, let's do it. I'm gonna change my share
Okay.
around. Sorry, I thought you were looking at everything on my screen.
Nope, still
We were
on
just
the
looking at one
slides, and I'm
screen.
like, okay,
No,
because
that's
I just got my renewal notice, and I don't remember ever hearing about an accord statement. So
I'm gonna
that's a
show
new.
it to you.
Okay,
So
cool.
you guys see it now, probably. I think I put in the
Oh, okay,
wrong.
gotcha. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
My bad, guys. Sorry about that. How many years have we been doing Zoom calls and learning Zoom, and we're still learning new things on how to share screens? Pretty bad, right? So here we go. So what I was talking about, and I'll show it to you again, is this an accord statement. There's that acronym ACORD, Certificate of Liability Insurance. Coordinated here, you can see where it says assurance brokers. That's the producer. I have two insurers. Selective Insurance is my general liability. Chubb Ace, American Insurance Company. Such a weird name. Who would name their insurance company Chubb? I don't understand, but it is. Maybe that's an acronym for something. Anyhow, that's for our cyber liability. Policy numbers, dates that are in effect, but the thing that I share with you here, and the thing that you may want to look at, is make sure that, I think it's down here in certificate holder, this is where they'll list an additional insured. And I didn't pull up my professional liability, which has, I have a university that insists on being listed as an additional insured. So that's where that would be. All right, I'm going to go back to the original screen. I'm going to stop the share for a second and get back into our PowerPoint slide. All right, accord statements, next slide. So let's kind of wrap things up with my 5.5 suggestions for insurance. First thing, insurance brokers are probably the way to go. They're supposed to save you money. I found I used to say will, and I now say may, because I worked through an insurance broker to find me health insurance, and I found a very frustrating process that made me want to pull my hair out. So I will just say may. If you understand brokers, big ideas, they don't look at just State Farm or Allstate. They're supposed to review the whole landscape of insurance opportunities and find you the best deal. That's what their job is. So I do suggest you still go to brokers, but you know, keep an eye out. Make sure that there's nothing on the back end going on that you're missing out on. That when I say that, somebody getting a benefit by working through one policy, something smells funny, it probably is. Know your NAICS code. Oh, what is that? North American, I forget what the acronym is, but you need to know what your code is. For me, it's 611710, which is the educational organization. And I don't think I can pull that up anymore. But that's a hyperlink. That helps your insurance companies know who you are and what kind of work you do, which helps them identify your cost, the cost for your insurance. So if my NAICS code had something to do with like engineering or architecture, I would be a much higher liability for them, because when things go wrong in architecture, it's a bad deal. But in educational research, usually there's no big deal there, and they identify costs and things along those lines. If you're going to go into offering healthcare to your employees, I mean, you may consider a QSARA plan. You may want to go ahead and offer a full health insurance plan. Expensive, everything's expensive with healthcare, as you know. I use the qualified small employer health reimbursement account plan, and it works out pretty good for us. And for all intents and purposes, I think I'm going to try and raise it for my employees and give them more versus going for a true health insurance. It's pretty expensive, and it keeps me out of having to get into all the details particularly when you don't have a big HR department, which is my HR department right now is me. So I don't have a lot of time to work on healthcare. For your professional liability, consider your professional associations. I put AEA in there as a question mark. I did hear that AEA was considering offering professional liability insurance at one point, and I haven't heard about that lately. And this is a slide from a year ago, and we were thinking about it then. I guess there's still no word on it. So be aware AEA might actually offer it someday, but at this point, I don't think they are. You might want to insure expensive equipment. And finally, don't insure inexpensive furniture like what I have, because I buy all my stuff secondhand for pennies on the dollar. I'm really excited about this next slide because I put out a call for presentations. And again, if anybody here wants to give a presentation, but I had like 3 sessions set up last week for the future stuff, and now we've got everything basically up through October. I just heard that I might need some assistance for September 1st, because somebody needs me to do something that day with a client and I won't be available. So if anybody is interested in taking September 1st and coordinating an IC topic session, I know that Naima's in here. She's listed here somewhere. I know I put her in there. I think August 18th. Naima is going to be talking to us. Next week, we're going to do another core topic. We kind of back them back to back, and maybe talking about office space. If you've been following the independent consulting e-group listserv, there's been a lot about pre-grant evaluation planning, and Laura McLean, she's going to be talking to us then. So that's going to be awesome. Looking forward to that. Heidi is on today, and they're going to be talking about business coaching on September 8th. See anything else? Anybody else want to talk about their session coming up? I don't know if I covered everybody. I think I did. All right, with that, I'm going to stop the recording and we can go into the chat function, and I will probably